I know what. Okay.
Make it a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry for that.
You're doing pretty well.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
perfect.
Mm. Okay, only a few words on this daf, and that is the last few words, and then we'll have to change on to something else. But the Mishnah, we're going now into the halacha of eating. It means we had about shoes, the rechitza, nilas sandal, that was yesterday, and now we're going on to the Mishnah that says ochel kisevas agasa, that if somebody eats the size of a big date, so then that's the chiyuv. The chiyuv is not by kazayas, usually by the yisurim or the mitzvahs of eating. Has to do with a kazayas. A kazayas, the size of an olive, the volume of an olive is considered eating. But here, there's different share. The share is kosefas. Kosefas is that date, and kosefas agasa is a big date. Just to recall, the Mishnah says kosefas agasa kamor chagari nasa, which is a simple translation, which I translated the Mishnah a couple of days ago, was that it and its pit. But we see now the Gemara is not going to be so sure about that, so that's what the Gemara is going to talk about. Boya Papa, kosefas. I'm sorry that I have to go down off a second and. How do I do this? There's something behind there, 154. Is that possible? Is that, does everybody see that on the screen, the fine test? Here we do, but over there, everybody out there, do you see the fine test on the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the question the Gemara asks is a little bigger. Okay, 1 second. Gonna get over here. Okay. Okay. So when it says in the Mishnah the size of a date, does it include the pit also? Or the date with the pit or the date without the pit? So the problem is the Mishnah says, the Mishnah says openly that has to do with the pit also. So Rashi says the different Rashi says that maybe the Mishnah means does it mean both it and its pit, or does it mean it or its pit? That happens to be the same size. That the pit and the date, the food part and the pit part are both the same. So there's that difficulty with that, but would read the Gemara. The Gemara is going to come out the simple pshat that it means it and its pit. But that's the Gemara's question. Gemara asks other questions, similar questions. Boy Ravashi, Esim Kisora. We know that the size of a bone that gives off tumas mace is the size of a saora, a barley. So the question is, below klipasa, you talk about a barley, so a grain of barley. So does it include the shell also, or without the shell? Doesn't mean when it's moist or when it's dry. When it's dry, so then it's shrunk, it's smaller. So when you say the share is a saora, so there are two questions to ask. This comes in as a bonus. Our subject was, we said kimor chagari nasa or not. And now we bring other questions also. And the Gemara asked a question about Esem Kesora. Ravashi, Lomi Boya Lehadra Papa. Ravashi, you had the question about Kosefas. He doesn't ask Ravashi had the question about Saora. He didn't have the question about our Mishnah about Kosefas because Hadra Papa. Ravashi, Lomi Boya Lehadra Papa. Ravashi didn't have the question. Papa had the question because Gasa Itmar. It says in the Mishnah, Kosefas Gasa, the big Kosefas. That sounds like you want to say the bigness of it. It's hard. The Mishnah would mean the big date, not including the pit. Kol kama the gas, as big as it is, and that's why we pass. We pass that the share is to get the date, including the pit.
Papa didn't have any question. We didn't look at that.
I'm sorry.
Papa didn't have a question on that.
Papa had a question. That was his question. How's the Gemara started? Ahmed Beis in the bottom. What does the Gemara start? Right. He had the question. He was the one who asked the question. Rav Ashi didn't have the question. Rav Ashi had a question only Besim Kesora. Rav Papa had a question by Kosefas. So the Gemara says, why did Rav Ashi not have Rav Papa's question? Because Kosefas Agas, it means as big as it is, it means including, and that's how we ask him. That when we say Kosefas, it means including the pit also. Rav Papa, let me play the other Rav Ashi. Rav Papa didn't think it's a question by Rav Ashi's case where it talks about the Saora, because Malacha, Shibolas Mikri, if it's a moist grain of barley, then it wouldn't be called Saora, it would be called Shibolas. It's a different word. And if it would be called Shlobo Likipasa, Ushla Mikri, if you have barley which is peeled barley has a different word. Like we would call it today pearl barley. Is that how they call it nowadays? So the same idea that it has a different name. So since it says Saora, so surely it means
Dry,
dr-
full grain barley.
dry, right, very good. Dry with the klipa. Okay, that's the end of the sugya. As far as we go, you need to know that a kasevus means including the pit, and also as far as sora, it means dry with the peel, with the shell. That's the end of the Gemara. Easy Gemara. Kamor Chagari Nasa, even though you might have learned the Mishnah differently, it means a simple pshat, the date, and also the pit. New sugya. The rest of the sugya today is going to be one question: is a kosevus agasa bigger than an egg or smaller than an egg? So if we take a date of today, I think it's going to be hard to find any date that's as big as an egg. But in the kosevus agasa was a certain kind of bazan. I think they did find an ancient variety strain of dates that are very, very big. They talked about it. Maybe that's the kosevus. I think in recently they had in archaeology. Archaeologists found pits of dates and they developed them, and they think that maybe that's the kosevus agasa. I think they talk about it. But anyway, there's a big date, and the question was, is it bigger than an egg and smaller than an egg? So we're going to go through rayas. The Gemara is going to try to bring proofs one way or the other. Is it bigger or not? The first sheet is Rav Yehuda. He says kosevus agasa is bigger than an egg, and the Gemara is going to continue with that. And then Amud Beis, we're going to get to another sheet that's going to say that a kosevus agasa is smaller than an egg. Smaller than an egg. That's going to be that's also good today. That's all we're going to talk about. Of course, different sugis come in always, like always, go on cruises here and there. But that's the subject for today. So Rita says that a kosevus agasa is bigger than an egg. That means a big chiddush that a person is not chayiv on Yom Kippur until he eats even more than an egg. The shir tipi chayiv on Yom Kippur is more than an egg, and they're more surprised. More than he ate an egg and he's still not chayiv on Yom Kippur. And for Kim Lulu Rabban, whatever you say, if eggs were small, then the dates also will be smaller. Like the same.
The eggs were larger.
The eggs were small and the dates were big. It doesn't seem so. There are many proofs that the eggs didn't get smaller. The only reason they say eggs got smaller in the shiurim nowadays, only because they answer akasha. There are many, many difficulties to say that the eggs got smaller. Also, besides the fact that the archaeology, they also found eggs. Also, they found eggs that they didn't get smaller. But the only reason they say it is to answer akasha, and the kasha has other tourism also. So there's really the pashas is no reason to say that everything changed and that the dates used to be bigger than the eggs and now it's the opposite. But we'll see the proofs of the Gemara. The Gemara itself is surprised to say that you should be won't be chayiv if you eat an egg. You're not chayiv on Yom Kippur. The Kivlu the Rabbanan the Bahachim Yasvadaita what's the Machilam Yasvadaita that the Chachamim evaluated that you have to have so much in order to be miyushav. The word miyushav because again by Yom Kippur it doesn't say do not eat. It doesn't say such a mitzvah. The mitzvah says afflict yourself. So the question is what's called affliction? If you ate the amount that satisfies you to the amount not a satisfaction but that it's not afflicted anymore. So the Chazal say that a person is not miyushav dach. Yishav adas until he eats a kosevus, even though it's more than a beitza. So the Gemara is entertaining the possibility. It could be that you're not chayiv for Yom Kippur unless you ate a kosevus, which is bigger than a egg. Gemara's a kasha. The Gemara is going to try to prove from a Mishnah that a kosevus is less than a beitza. Basically, a famous Mishnah in Sukkah. Ma'aseh v'avilu Rav Yochanan Zakei l'utamas atashel or Rav Gamliel shtei kosevus u'tlich almayim v'amu halam l'sukkah. Mishnah talks about that they brought to Rav Yochanan Zakei to taste the food. He was out of the sukkah, and they brought him to sample the food. And to Rav Gamliel two dates. Here's the word kosovos, two kosovos, and also a bucket of water, a pitcher of water. And they were out of the sukkah. They said, "Halon sukkah. We want to take it up to the sukkah. We'll taste it over there." Rav Yochanan Zakei said, "I'll taste the food over there in the sukkah." Rav Gamliel said, "The 2 dates and the water, I'll take it in the sukkah." Tani Allah, we learned to Bryce, not because you're mechuyev to. There's only a chumrah. They really allowed to eat these things out of the sukkah, but they wanted to be machmir. So it says that to eat 2 kosovos, what the Gemara wants is to eat 2 kosovos, 2 dates is a chumrah. You don't really have to. You don't have to. You're allowed to eat 2 dates out of the sukkah. The Gemara continues. The Mishnah continues over there.
No, one excited.
Right, there's nothing to do with kazayis. The share is not going to be a kazayis. And it says that even 2 dates you're still allowed to eat out of the sukkah. So we're going to see. That's what the most working on. And then it says it continues. Let's have to make it a little bit smaller over here. The Mishnah continues that Rabbi Tzadok was not machmir. Rabbi Yochanan Zakei and Rav Gamliel were machmir, and they ate it in the sukkah. But Rabbi Tzadok was not machmir, and they gave him food which is less than a kibetza. He didn't wash until yadayim. That's the way the Mishnah says. The Talmud Mapi put it in a napkin. Rashi says just for the kiyos, just you don't want to touch the food without washing his hands, but you're not chayv until yadayim. Also, he ate it out of the sukkah. And he didn't say bracha achron. He didn't say bracha samaz. Less than a beitza. You don't say bracha samaz less than a beitza. We have machlokes if it's kazayis or beitza. But anyway, what we want to focus on.
Also, you don't make bracha samaz.
That's because he also kabeitza and machlokes the Mishnah. You kabeitza kazayis, well the kazayis. But he also like a kabeitza. But the main.
eights.
It would have been, no, this was food. This was going to be bread.
Oh,
Talking about bread. I should have said so. It says ochel, but it means bread. Bread. And he didn't wash, even though bread Chayv Tilas Yadayim was less than a shear, so he didn't have to wash Tilas Yadayim. He didn't have to say Berachas Hamazon, and he ate out of the sukkah also. The Gemara sees from these words that Pachas Mekabes is the shear to eat in the sukkah. What's the shear they have to eat in the sukkah? A kabetza, because it says every tzedek it was less than a kabetza, so it wasn't Chayv in all these things. It wasn't Chayv Tilas Yadayim, wasn't Chayv Berachas Hamazon, wasn't Chayv in the sukkah. What does the Gemara want from that?
So the two percentages were less than a
Right.
So it's
Right.
very
That's what the Gemara
strange
wants.
because the Gemara, what the way I understand, the Gemara had a shayla, what's bigger, kesevis or kibetza? Now it comes out two kesevis is less than a kibetza. So it's like
Right. That's
it's a
what-
big
that-
jump.
That's what
no?
the Gemara wants to do. That's what the Gemara wants to prove.
So what was the shayla? If that's if
Well, let's see. The Gemara's they're not gonna be so convinced about it. The Gemara thinks it's a good raya now, and this is now Amud Beis. If I got it right. Yeah, and let's make it bigger. I'm sorry. The
I like the
controls-
bigger, it's bigger. It's more it's
Yeah.
easier for the eyes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Beta boy sukkah. What is the it says less than a kabetza is not chayv in the sukkah. So what do you see from the end of the Mishnah that a kabetza is chayv in the sukkah, and it says in the beginning that 2 dates is allowed to eat out of the sukkah. There's a chomer date in the sukkah, but you're allowed to eat out of the sukkah. So you see that 2 dates without the pits. The Gemara is going to say, okay, you don't need the pits.
Ah.
You don't need the pits. So 2 dates without the pits is less than a kabetza, and 1 date with the pit is more than a betza. The Gemara doesn't think the pit is so big. If you're going to say, like you said, Rav Yehuda, that a Kesef Sagasa is bigger than an egg, Hashtash take Kesefas below Garin, Lovi Kebetza, 2 dates without the pits. Of course, he didn't eat the pits, but 2 dates without the pits is not as big as a Kebetza. That's why it's allowed to eat out of the Sukkah. Kesef Sagasa Garin Nosam Yavi Yisem Kebetza. So 1 date with the pit is going to be more than a Betza. That's the Gemara's proof that a Kesef has to be with the pit, has to be less than a Kebetza. But the Gemara is not impressed. No, the pit is big. The pit is bigger than the kosevis. It wasn't going to say that the pit is even bigger than the date. The part that you don't need is bigger than the meat, right? So the Gemara says, "I'm Rabbi, it's not a problem." Yeah, it could be like that. It could be that shtek kosevis below gavinosa, love kibetza, kosevis agasa, big gavinosa, heavy yisayim kibetza. It could be. The Gemara is not so impressed. Yeah, like an avocado, huge pit, right? Something like that, right? So it could be that the pit of this kosevis agasa is very big, and it could be that 2 dates, one date with the pit is bigger than 2 dates without the pit, and therefore it was possible they could have eaten 2 dates without the pit, even and it's outside the sukkah, and it's not a shiva kabetza. So the Gemara is not impressed. Could be we're still right that maybe kosevis with the pit is bigger than an egg.
We're not equating the 2 different types of conservatives. We're saying they're the same genre, but we didn't take into account the pit.
Right,
originally.
right. Before we talk about the Shir Yom Kippur is the size of a date with the pit, and here it's talking about the 8 lamaisa 2 dates. That means without the pit, of course.
So it could be the
So it could be less than a kabetza. Amar Papa Hayu Dam Rinchi Trey Kabi the Tamri Chad Kabu the Kashas. That's Papa says that's how the saying goes that when you have 2 measures of dates, it's a measure plus of pits. Means more than half is going to be pit. That's the expression goes that if you have a kav is a measurement of a kav 24 eggs, whatever this volume of a kav is. If you have 2 kav of dates, 1 kav of pits plus. The word sariach means an extra. That it's going to be more than 1 means that more than half is going to be pit. So it fits with the saying also that maybe the saying was only an exaggeration, but that's the point the Gemara is saying over here, that it could be that the pit is so big that don't think that it's equal to the meat. It could be that the pit is more than the meat.
So kesevis and the tamar is the same exact thing.
That's what it seems.
What does this mean? Kichad kava dikshita.
Kashasa. Kashasa is the pit of the date. It's called kashasa. It starts on the beginning of the line. Trei kavi the tamri.
Right.
2 kav of dates is chad kav of the kashasa usariach. It's 1 kav of pit plus extra. Means that
Sariach means extra.
Sariach. Rashi brings down the puzzle.
Right.
Right. Rashi brings it down here. I can find it maybe on Rashi. Let's see. You see the Rashi over there? Kamo tisrach al chorei hamishkan. V'striach lashon odef extra. Kamo tisrach when it talks about that urias they hang behind the mishkan and they're even longer than the one behind. So it says the word over there tisrach. Okay, so the more continues. So that was 1 teretz. There's another teretz possible. The one says that what did he eat? He didn't eat bread. He ate dates. They brought 2 dates to eat. So dates are not chayv in the sukkah. Even if you eat 5 dates, you're not chayv in the sukkah. That's I was surprised nobody jumped up. That fruit you don't have to eat in the sukkah.
The one who's not from.
Dates,
Yeah.
you have to eat in sukkah.
Do you?
Mitzvah Shivas Aminim, I said.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I thought you,
but not pasha.
I thought you said that he ate bread. I thought we were saying it was a bread.
No, the Gemara says they brought him 2 dates. Again, the bread was by Absodek. By Absodek.
Oh, the bread.
But
I
by
see. Yeah, okay.
Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was it? They brought him 2 dates. From Gamliel, they brought 2 dates and a bucket of water, pitcher of water. So there was actually 2 dates. So he's saying dates, what's the problem? Even if the kamut, the volume was taka this year, that would have been chayv, it would have been bread. But he's eating dates. He's not eating dates out of the. Yeah, that's the sugya. That's the sugya now. That's it. Here we are. How about apples? You wouldn't say.
Yeah.
Only the Shivas Aminim.
Rabbi Akiva saying-
Any age.
Any age. So that's the sugya. This is the sugya. Here is such a chumrah, and it's our sugya. This is the sugya. It's very interesting that in the Homosech Sukkah doesn't talk about this.
Tosfos quotes also from Sukkah, where you have Oklin Arai Chutz Sukkah and Kav Zayin Amid Aleph.
Arai, but here it doesn't talk about that's Arai. We know Arai, but that's bread. Arai also allowed to eat. But here we're talking about if it wouldn't be Arai, if it would be, is the difference between the quality of food? Is it only the quantity or is it the quality? And here our Gemara assumed till now that Peres Chayv and Sukkah. That was the whole kasha. Now the Gemara comes, Rav Amar, that Peri Lo Bo Sukkah. But it's a chiddush and not so simple. Yes.
Wasn't Rabbi Akiva of the opinion you had to branch after the dates of the Shavamim, any of the Shavamim?
It's true, but what is
Because it's cheap.
we paskin not like that? We paskin that
Maybe we're talking about some posting rule.
Yeah, but again, yes, but the Gemara is coming to attack. So the Rabbi says, what are you attacking? Yeah, somebody said, Rav said that Kosevis is bigger than an egg. So he had a kasha that it says over here that he ate 2 dates and he didn't, he's not chayv in the sukkah. What's the problem? Parents are not chayv in the sukkah. This is the sukkah, and I'm very surprised that it's not found in the sukkah. I think, as far as I know, the Hom Sukkah doesn't talk about this. Our parents chayv in sukkah. Here it is in Yuma, you have sukkah. Rav Amar. So the first heres was that it could be that 2 dates without the pits is because of the size, that the volume of 2 dates is less than the shear of a kibetza. But the Rava says it could be another teretz that even if the volume is very big, and that's his chiddush. The Gemara goes off on a tangent now. If this is true, the Gemara is going to go into the Hilchos Sukkah, a pair is chayv in Sukkah. So we have 2 teretzim possible. One is that the volume over there was less because he ate the 2 dates without the pits. Second teretz is he ate a lot of dates. It could be very, very, very big. But pairs are not chayv in Sukkah, even Shivas Aminim. Meisvei. Now we're going off to the subject if fruit are chayv in Sukkah. Meisvei. Amar Rebbe. כשהיינו לומדים תורה אצל רב אלעזר בן השמוע, הביאו לפנינו תאנה בענבים, ואכלנו אכילת ארבע מחוץ לסוכה. He says that when we were learning Torah by Reb Elazar ben Shemua, they brought before us figs and grapes, and we ate them casually, achilas arai, out of the sukkah. That sounds like the only reason why we ate it out of the sukkah is because achilas arai. Like Manuel said, achilas arai, that eat bread out of the sukkah also. So here it's mashma only because achilas arai, but otherwise figs and grapes and other fruit would be chayv in sukkah. Achilas arai and achilas kavalo. So don't you see that pairs are chayv in sukkah against Rava? So what's him to get out of that? It doesn't mean that he ate it achilas arai. They ate a whole bowl full of grapes, but grapes, no matter how many eat, it's all achilas arai because grapes are not chayv in sukkah. Fruit. Even same another test you could say, if I could say, achalnu achilas keva. We ate as many grapes. We ate a lot of grapes and figs. And also we had bread also achilas arai, like ve'achilas arai. We ate it and also achilas arai. So both of them maybe are a dochak. Maybe the first one is like less of a dochak, but the Gemara is not impressed, and the Gemara says the parents are not chayv in sukkah. Why not kasha? It seems to say that figs and grapes are only achilas arai mutter. The Gemara says no, it's mutter as much as you want. You can eat fruit out of the sukkah. Let me say maybe there's a proof to the Rabbi who says that parents are not chayv in sukkah. It says the Frikach Mishnah b'minei targima yatsa. Over there it's talking about. That when it says before that we ate figs and grapes out of the sukkah achilas arai, don't translate that it means because of achilas arai that's why we're allowed to eat it. If it would be achilas kavi, we wouldn't be allowed to eat it. We ate it outside the sukkah like achilas arai because all fruit is considered achilas arai. And second there it says that we ate grapes as much as we wanted, and we also ate bread also a little bit bread also. But achilas peros we won't even come. And now the Gemara wants to prove that Rav is right. That you, yes. You're allowed to eat. The Gemara is saying Rav is the Gemara is trying to answer Rav that he's right. You're allowed to eat pears as much as you want, even achilas keva outside the sukkah. And they had achilas arai. They had also some bread also.
And that's the reason.
That's why he says achilas arai. Rava is of the opinion that you can eat fruit out of the sukkah. The Gemara had a kasha on him from a brisa that said that figs and grapes are mutter out of the sukkah chilas are right. It sounds like if it's a chilas kav, he wouldn't be allowed to. Two terutzim that they're out of the sukkah. That and as much as you eat is going to be considered a chilas are right. Not because you ate a little bit. When you say you ate bread a chilas are, you eat a little bit bread. But if you ate fruit, as much fruit as you eat is always called a chilas are. Second, there is we ate a lot of fruit and also some bread a chilas are.
And therefore,
That's why it says a
therefore
chilas
you need a sukkah.
It says he didn't need a sukkah because it was a chilas aron. Because fruit you allowed to eat out of the sukkah and bread a chilas aron you allowed to eat out of the sukkah.
Oh, also bread.
Chilas aron. Now the Gemara wants to bring a proof then for Smart Kasha. Now the Gemara is like bring a proof. Let me say it says in a Mishnah, I think, the Fikach Mishnah B'Mina Tagima Yatsa. It says that let's talk about how many sudas you have to eat on sukkahs, whatever the amount is, and then it says you could be mashlim with Mina Tagima. Mina Tagima. The question what that means, it doesn't seem to mean fruit. So they what? Some call it mazonos, some say meat and fish and cheese, chashuva foods. So you could that's also you also with that also. But the Gemara thinks that this is more chashuv. Mina tagima is going to be more chashuv than fruit. And if you say that fruit is also chayiv in sukkah, we saw the night of peri bo sukkah against Rava. So listening peri, so should have said you could eat fruit. Why did it say mina tagima? It sounds more chashuv. Either it means mazonos or it means meat and fish and cheese. So isn't that a raya to Rava? That fruit are potter from sukkah. You have to want to eat something which is chayiv in sukkah. You have to eat something which is
Yes, that means you
tagima.
go out of the sukkah.
No, yotze means that you yotze. Yotze the mitzvah of eating in the sukkah. Let's talk about amount the Amar. It says you have to have every day you have to eat in the sukkah, and it says if you ate mina tagima, it's also yotze the mitzvah of eating in the sukkah. So it says if you sold Paris chayiv in sukkah, so then it should have been said even in Paris, a big chiddush. But even Paris chayiv can be yotze the mitzvah of eating in the sukkah. So that's a raya to Rava. But the Gemara answers it's not such a raya. My mina tagima Paris. You could say that. Tagim also includes Paris also. It's not necessarily means only meat and fish. It can mean maybe Paris also. Or it means in a place where there's no fruit, so then take meat. But also if you have fruit, so then you could use that also. So that was the bonus we got about the Paris Achayv and Sukkah. Rava says they're not. The Gemara doesn't say Mamash Maskana. The Rush does bring down some sheetas to say that Paris Achayv and Sukkah. But we pass not like that. Paris are not Chayv and Sukkah, but it's good to be Machmir. So
today,
minadin, you're not chayiv, right? Mina tagima, it sounds like mina tagima is more is more like meat and cheese and this, but Paris are not chayiv in sukkah. There's a chomer, of course, to eat in the sukkah also. And the Rush brings down such a sheet that we will pass. You don't have to. So really, not chayiv in sukkah. You're not chayiv in sukkah. You surely don't say bracha if you're just going to eat some fruit and you're not going to stay there for a long time. You don't say leisha b'sukkah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
If you do according to the graph, you'll be there for 5 minutes.
That's because of the 5 minutes. It's not because of the eating. It's
No,
not,
that's what I'm saying. If you be there for 5
that's
minutes.
different. That's do if you say bracha on the sitting without eating, that's one thing. But if you're just gonna say bracha because you're eating and really just in and out, so you wouldn't be chayiv on the sitting alone. So then you wouldn't say bracha. The minute you don't say bracha on the sitting, it's a little
Even
time.
minute tagima.
So on top, I think Reb Chaim Kanievsky told me that he came to visit years ago. He came for about 5 or 10 minutes. He had an apple and he made leish.
I
I'm not maybe
I
cover
would
the
think,
graph.
I would think even if he would sit down without the apple, also maybe he would.
We're saying there is a difference between the Paris and the.
The Gemara, even the tzad that the Gemara said that Paris are not chayiv in sukkah, but meaning the Gemara said is yes chayiv in sukkah. When the Gemara, you see that there's such a more reason to be chayiv. The meat and these things are more chashiv than fruits. So even if someone's makel, there is a sheet that would say that the Gemara will be chayiv. I don't recall exactly how to.
You don't really know what it is. So it's
No, we know at least that it means like I think meat, fish,
Oh,
these
really?
kind of chashiv.
Was it
So
some
it says
kind
better
of a
not to eat that
maple?
out of the sukkah. Fruit is much more
That's
cooler
right.
to eat out of the sukkah.
wow. What?
Maybe tomorrow I'll come in with halacha, better to see. Maybe we might even have time today to see a little bit if we end early. It's not such a long doc. Now comes the opponent of Rav Yehuda. If you had Rav Yehuda that said that a kosevis is bigger than an egg. We tried to attack him, we didn't knock him down. And now Rizvit says, kosevis agas Hashem v'chaser mikabetza. He's the opposite. He says that this big date, even though it's a big date, but it's still smaller than a betza, smaller than an egg. He's going to bring a proof. So we didn't. How did it go in the Amud Aleph over there? We didn't prove it, but we didn't disprove it. And now,
You're saying Yehuda held that even it's bigger than even the Mekazah.
that's what he said. He said Amud Aleph. And now Rizvit is arguing on Rav Yehuda. Rizvit says that a kosevis is less than a kibetza. What's his proof? The Tanan. Beishama Yomrim. So because chametz b'ke kosevis. It's talking about the bali rabal yematzeh, not eating it on Pesach, but if you had it in your property, how much volume makes that you should be over the mitzvah, the avera of lo yirol yematzeh. So we pass the kazayis everything. No difference chametz and sar. We pass like Beis Hillel. There's always a kazayis. But Beishama says no. And if it's sa'or would mean sourdough, something that could make leaven. So he says the shear is a kazayis, but if it's chametz, that's not leavening, not something that's a sourdough, not that it could make a dough to become more chametz. So then the shear is a kosevis. So here comes kosevis again, and he wants to prove. The Gemara is going to prove that this kosevis must be bigger, must be less than an egg. What's the Gemara say? Avinan bo, what?
Because it's a chomer. Shammai's machmir then.
He's being makeup because he says that chametz is only over loy rolei matzeh when it's bigger than a kazayis. Chomer than what? He still says everything's a kazayis. Kazayis small olive, and he says that chametz only over loy rolei matzeh if it's a kosevis. So it's much bigger than an olive. The question is it bigger than a gebeitz even? We have an olive, that's and then you have a kosevis someplace. We don't know if the kosevis is bigger than an egg or less than an egg.
No, so I could say as far that probably Beishamai is not so makel. That's
They
what
want-
they say, no?
That maybe what? Maybe not. Maybe. I think Gemara's going to do more. The Gemara's going to have a more
There's a
accurate.
difference between chametz
And so, Beit Shammai holds. We all not like that. But Beit Shammai holds that chametz is more lenient than Saor. So even though Saor is loy rolei matzeh on the size of an olive, he's not over loy rolei matzeh on chametz. Only if he has the size of a kosevis. We don't know where it comes from yet. We don't know his source. We're going to go into that now. What's the source of Beit Shammai? And we asked over there when we learned that Allah of Beit Shammai, my time of the Beit Shammai, where did he get it from? The answer is because Beit Shammai has a cheshbon like this. This Beit Shammai says, why does the Torah say chametz and sor? Which one is more chomer? So Beit Shammai goes that sor is more chomer because it's something that not only that's chametz, but even so chamutz that it could even make something else leavening. It's so much bacteria of chametz that even can make something else. So the Torah should have just said chametz, and you know a couple chomer that sor is also. And I mean, now what is myself? Ma chametz shein chimutz kasha also because I is sor shein chimutz kasha lo kolshkein. I would have known myself if the Torah says chametz is also. I would have made myself kolshkein that's or. Why does the Torah say both of them? It must be that it's different. Because the Torah separated, it must be saying that there's a chumrah, the Torah is more chumrah. And what's going to be the chumrah? So the small one is nothing less than a kazayis. So the one which is more chumrah is going to be a kazayis. So, or, let's make it a little smaller over here. Yes. Okay. Since the Torah, the beginning of Rahmana, top line, since the Torah divided and said Sor and Chametz, it must be the Torah wants to tell you that there's different shear, that it's not going to be the same Chametz. It's true, Sor is more Chamor, and that's going to be a Kazayis. And Chametz, which is less Chamor, Kosevis. Now, that's what the Gemara is going to say. Shiro says, Allah, Shiro says that, Sor Kazayis, Chametz Kosevis. Now, where did he get Kosevis from? It says, all he has, the only clue that Beit Shammai has is that it's going to be more than a Kazayis. So, where did he dream up a Kosevis? It must be because that's the next online. The next chashav b'shir after a kazayis must be a
He
kosevis.
skipped this kosevis.
Right, right. If kosevis is bigger than a kibetza, then he should have stopped at kibetza. He should have said so a kibetza. If you're going to hold that a kosevis is bigger than an egg, mechti b'shamay sure enough as kazayis kamahadri. B'shamay is just looking for a shear which is bigger than a kazayis. So listening kibetza. He should have said a kibetza, which is the next year. And even if you can say that it's equal, he wants you to say that it's less. Not only that it's not more than a kibetza, it's also not equal to kibetza. Even if they're going to be equal, he should have said a kibetza instead of a kesevis. This the kibetza, which is more normal. That we always have a shear kibetza. You don't kesevis is like a unique kind of a shear. So it must be that it must be Allah shamino kesevis pachas kibetza. It must be that it's less, and therefore when he's going to say the next year after kazayis, that's why he hit a kosevis because it's less than a kibetza. This was his proof that a kosevis is less than a kibetza. It's good. The Gemara said Beit Shammai has the Torah says chametz and sa'or, and it could have said chametz. I would have known kavah chametz sa'or. Why does it say both of them? To say that they are two different shiur. That sa'or is more chomer and it's going to be a smaller shear. The smaller shear is a kazayis. What's the next shear? Why not a kibetza?
Is even bigger.
Right. That's it. You said it. It must be that kibetza is bigger than a kosevis. The Gemara tries to knock it down. Who says? Really, I'll say like Rav said, the kosevis is bigger, and stomach kibetza, and I'm sorry, kosevis agasa shamu yisem kibetza. There's a kosevis. The Gemara is talking about kosevis agasa, a big kosevis. The word kosevis. Till now we didn't talk about kosevis. A big one. Since kosevis agasa maybe is bigger than a kibetza, but here it says regular kosevis. It doesn't say kosevis agasa. It says Beit Shammai says that's chametz big. How's it go? So big kazayis, chametz big kosevis. It doesn't say kosevis agasa. So maybe kosevis agasa of Yom Kippur is bigger than a betza. A regular kosevis is kibetza. So, and what was the question before, that if it's equal, so why did he say a koseva, say kabetza, if it's the same thing, why use a strange shear? He's not impressed. Even though they're the same shear, he said one of them. So the Gemara does give in. How does the Gemara go? The Gemara says that a regular kosevas, you're right. This kosevas is not going to be bigger than a kabetza, but it could be the same size. But maybe a kosevas agas is bigger than a kabetza. So the Gemara didn't mamish prove it. But now the Gemara goes on a different proof, and this proof is going to hold. Here's the proof. What's the
You
shear?
make it a little bigger?
Okay,
Fine.
Okay. Proof from here. How much do you have to eat in order to be chayv in berachas hamazon? This is the famous machlokes. At kazayis tivra, maybe you don't at kibes machlokes. But the rice we say shares kedei severe, you have to eat to be satisfied. But with Rabbanan machlokes, if it's a kazayis or kibetza. But my kibetza, where's machlokes coming from? Kazayis kibetza. But Meir Soba, this holds. They hold here. Okay, I just said now that the rice you have to have a share sphere. I take back what I just said. It doesn't fit into the Gemara. The Gemara sounds here like it's dashning psukim. Could be that it's a asmachta, but the Gemara is dashning psukim. But Meir Soba b'chalta zu achila, b'savata zu shtia, b'achila b'kazayis. B'chalta b'savata b'rachta. So it says you eat and be satisfied and bench. And they say berachas hamazon. So he says that's two different things. Sorry, not two different things. Yeah, two different things. B'chalta means eating. Savata means drinking. And achalta alone means eating. How much is eating? Minimum eating. Achila b'kazayis. So that's why the kol Torah kula achila b'kazayis. He wants achila b'kazayis. Rabbi the Sava no. Achalta b'savata achila sheish b'asvia. He says that it has to be some kind of a satisfaction. It has to be satiation. It has to be enough food. Kazayis is called eating, but it's not. Doesn't satiate you. What satiates you? So there. An egg is enough that's considered that it satiates you. That's what the Gemara wants. That's the proof.
We hold the kabetza, right? To make her to be that's only.
We hold kazayis.
If it's the rice.
And I think we hold that rice is only if it's kedei svia.
Right, and therefore.
So that's not like
at least a kabetza. Some people.
There's two sure. One is kedei svia means that you're full. Yes, you're
Some
full.
people can be smaller eaters.
That's can be small. That's the rice. But here the Gemara seems to be dashing the psukim that achila sheish basvia. I think it's Rabbana, but it's an asmachta. But the Gemara goes that achila sheish basvia is a kabetza, and a satisfying eating is a kabetza. So that the Gemara says that's it. That's the closed story. You're saying that Yom Kippur you're not chayiv because it's still called inui until you eat a kosevas. You're saying kosevas is more than a beitza. Could that be hashlik a beitza swim misava taitelom yasma? If it's called kedei svia, then it's called that is satisfying. Eating an egg is satisfying, and you're going to say that it doesn't give yishuv adas. Your satisfaction is more than yishuv adas. Yishuv adas means that it's not afflicted. That's less of a level than being satisfied. So if you say here that a kabetza gives satisfaction, it can't be that it doesn't give yishuv adas. It must be that the kosevas is less than a kabetza. Allah shamina, shamu, pachas mekabetza. Kabetza misava. A kabetza would give satisfaction. Kosevas miyasva daite. That it must be that a kosevas does give yishuv adas, and less than a kabetza. That's the end of the Gemara. We had a machlokes how if a kosevas agas is bigger than a kabetza or less, and the Gemara comes out that it's less. The proof is from this last proof that Avuda said that achila sheish basvia is a kabetza that gives satisfaction. That's the satisfying eating to eat the size of an egg. It can't be that that's not that it's still called affliction. If it's even satisfying, it's not called affliction. And we say here that a kosevas, until he eats a kosevas, is called affliction, and that takes yishuv adas. It must be that kosevas is less than a kabetza, and therefore to get out of affliction, even a kosevas, but to be satisfied is only when it's a kabetza, and that's how we paskin that a kosevas is less than.
By using the same svara, you should say gazayas.
I don't follow.
We bet you on the gazayas.
I'm not following.
We bench on the gazayas.
We bench on the gazayas, yes. Because we pass on other kavidah. We don't pass on that it has to be a chilu sheish basvia. We pass like the first one. There's a question the gears of Meir Yehuda. Who's Meir Yehuda? Well, we pass on the gazayas. You're right, but not because it's called svia. Because you don't need svia. Achila, achalta zu achila, savata zu shtia.
Okay.
Good. Okay. So that's the.
Okay. Thank you.
That's savata shtia.
So what does it mean, savata zu shtia? So some say that if you're gonna, the only chayv in berachas wasn't the rice if you also drank. If you are thirsty still, If you ate but you didn't drink and you're thirsty, if you're not thirsty, you're not thirsty. But if you are thirsty, so they hold that it's not going to be a nachai as much as if you drink.
They had enough for the meal. That's what I was.
So I think that this more is drabanan, and even though it talks about on the drasha, but it sounds to be an asmachta. We pass him with them with the rice. It's only
We
because
hold
they
it,
spear.
we hold it at the end according to what's not even there.
This is drabanan. It's okay that it's an asmachta. That's okay. The Gemara just wants to prove that Yehuda called that it's called Chila Sheish Basvia. It doesn't make a difference if it's an asmachta or not. Yehuda said, asmachta means that it's a remez in the pasuk, but it's a remez. But not that the pasuk is a drasha gemura, but that doesn't make a difference. Yehuda Tana says that if you eat an egg, that's called a satisfying eating. Not that it's a kedei sphere. That doesn't mean that a person is full, but it means that it's a satisfying eating. He gets satisfaction from it. And here we're talking about that he shouldn't be afflicted. So it can't be that he has satisfaction, and that word sphere, achila, is going to be surely not afflicted anymore. So it must be that kosefis is less than a kibetza. That's the end of the sugya. So what we had today, just chazer over. I forgot the first sugya. What was the first sugya? Oh, kosefis includes the pit. That was the first sugya. There was someone had a question. Someone didn't have a question. We passed him that it includes the pit. We don't know exactly how big it is. You see, the Gemara itself didn't know how big it is exactly. It could be they didn't have this kosefis agasa. But we did prove at the end that it's less than a kibetza. The poskim say that if somebody has to eat on Yom Kippur, so they try to eat less than a shear, so the shear is kosefis agasa. So how much should he eat to make sure? If he has to eat, he has to eat, and you eat whatever you have to. But if it's possible to do less shiurim, to eat less than a shear, so the poskim say 30. What do they call cc's? Cubic centimeter. What do they call that? Sound is smak. That's an egg is like 50, and this is 30. They say like 2/3 of an egg. How do they know exactly 2/3? I don't know. The word does prove that it's less than an egg. How do you know to say that? I don't know. I don't know how the poskim get 2/3 of a kibetza. They say the poskim, the contemporary poskim will say to eat less than 30 cc.
And then the drinking.
Drinking has to do with each person individually, malo lugma. So there's no set share. It depends how big his mouth is. A big mouth, a small
It's
mouth.
interesting. So
And-
why they make the
This is individual. This is subjective. That the Gemara is going to say that's the facts. Each of us, each one should be inuit. By drinking, you're not satisfied. You're still afflicted until you have a malo lugma. And food is standard for everybody. The Gemara's going to make a point out of this. Maybe it's strange, but the Gemara makes a big deal out of that. That it can be ogmel havashan and it can be a small. And everybody, if you eat a kosefes, you have no more affliction. But liquid has to do with each person according to his size. So there's no stand. The post can do say also by drinking, they say some kind of standard for normal people. But a person has to know that if he's extra small, he should drink less. If he's extra big, he really is not drinking more.
I know people that have to have 2 glasses of some kind of drink at the meal, and
That's not the
I don't
sub-
like to do that.
I'm not sure. That's not the subject. We're talking about what's called the malo lugma. We're not talking about how much a person enjoys drinking.
Quantity of drink.
Yes. The malo lugma.
What you're talking about.
No, you're still under V'chalta V'savata. We're talking about the shared drinking. So that's today's sugya. Hope everybody enjoyed.
But I can't read this last 2 lines. I'm sorry.
Maybe.
Leave it out the data. I'm not getting it.
3 lines up. If it enters your mind that kasevas agasa is bigger than an egg, so how can it be? Hashna kabetza hu mesava. If an egg gives you satisfaction, it doesn't give yishuv adas. Means by Yom Kippur, the point is yishuv adas, the opposite of inui. Inui means affliction, and yishuv adas is when a person is not afflicted anymore. So if this given satisfaction, he doesn't have yishuv adas even. Can't be. Allah Shram, we know kasevas agas shamu pasum kabetza. It must be that this date is less than a kabetza. A kabetza mesava. A kabetza would give you satisfaction, and the kosevas, which is less, we ask for that thing.
Maybe, so a piece of cake, you can eat out of sukkah.
So that's going to be called Mina Targima maybe. And let's get the Shulchan Aruch. If we do have time, I don't want to keep anybody, but if everyone wants to stay, we can look at the Shulchan Aruch over here for Hilchas Sukkah. What do you find in Sukkah?
Rebbe, I'd like to ask you one other question from yesterday, halacha. And that is, we came out at the end of Shir yesterday with this halacha about not feeding a child, even pachos michinok, not feeding him an isser. And I'm wondering in day-to-day life, we were talking about Yom Kippur, but I'm also wondering in day-to-day life, it's a common occurrence for young children that the whole inyan of basar v'chalav, that they will want to eat, drink a bottle either with or right samud to meat. So if you're not allowed to even give it to him,
Everybody?
how do the poskim normally handle that?
I'm sorry, it was silence for a minute. We didn't hear. If you can start again.
Okay, Pashut, we came out yesterday that there's an isser to be machil a cotton,
Right?
isser biyadayim.
Yes.
Okay, so there were chilukim like gilchinuk, below gilchinuk, but lemaisa every day of the year, when you have young children that are ragil to drink bottles of milk with everything, and it's samud to meat or it's with meat or whatever. So, and you also have a rule that you don't want them going in the fridge by themselves. So lemaisa, what do the poskim say to do?
I think that what they say by meat and milk is not such a problem. To give them tray for something like that, then you don't give them tray. But to give them meat and milk, so the point of a meal to a meal by children is different than by an adult. That their meal is not so big. If you ask them, I can't say exactly how the postcard are going to say, but I think in general, if you ask the kid, did you have milk recently? And by him, it's like a long time ago that he had milk. It was like 2 hours ago, whatever, 1 hour ago. That's like a long time ago. So in his mind, it's like a new. That's called not in the same suda.
What if they want together? What if they want to have the bottle of?
No, together not. I think together you're not supposed to give them.
Yeah.
I think together you're not supposed to give them. Like you said, if you take by themselves, he takes the bottle by himself. He does tat meat, takes by himself. Maybe you're not mechuyev, you're not gil chinuch. But to give them, I think not. If he's old enough to realize that he's eating it in the same meal, it's called close together. I think so.
So in other words, however, if he takes the milk, let's say the milk is sitting around and he takes it, and he's eating meat, you don't have to stop him. Be mafresh.
I hear. If they're not gil chinuch, I would think so.
Well, again, Gil Chinuk is a big subject because, again, when you talk about shul, the Mishnah Brewer gives like 5 or 6, but we see already a lot of children cannot be in shul by 5 or 6, right?
The Mishnah Brewer will be the first one to say not to bring them at 5 or 6. He's very much to say to make noise, don't bring them till they're able to daven, or to be quiet at least. So I don't think he says 5 or 6 over there. Okay, just a little bit about Hilchas Sukkah. Our subject today was about eating in pairs with the Sukkah, so I didn't prepare this, but now we'll read it together. This is in Hilchas Sukkah Tafresh Lamates. Ochlam v'shosim v'shenim b'sukkah. You're supposed to eat, drink, and sleep in the sukkah all 7 days and day and night. You can't sleep out of the sukkah even a little. Sleep out of the sukkah even a little bit. You're allowed to eat achila sarai. What's that? Kam achila sarai. Kibetz amipas. Egg volume of an egg of bread is still mutter. A little bit more is ready also, but a kibetz is still mutter. Mutter here it says in the Mishnah Pachas kibetz. This exactly in egg. I don't know exactly. Okay, but less than egg. Surely is mutter. It even says a kibetz. You're allowed to drink water and wine, and to eat peros. He says you're allowed to eat fruit, even if it's kvius, as much as you want, a whole big bowl, basket of fruit. Mishnah Brewer. Hatam, because achilas peros afilu harbe b'kvius chashuv rak achilas hara. It's only considered achilas hara. So too, he says also meat, fish, cheese, and other kinds of. He says also that it's not anymore, even though the Gemara does say chiluk of tagima. He says also it's like peros according to the Shulchan Aruch, and he's only machmer at the end by tafshil also. He says at the end about mizonos, something made out of mizonos, so then the Shulchan Aruch is going to say Shulchan Aruch is going to continue to say chumrah. So far about fruit, he says everything's mukh.
Look, there's no chiluk haaretz where you have to make a different bracha. No chiluk.
We're not talking about brachas. We're talking about the sukkah. Is he chayiv in sukkah, right? So he says that so far all these things about peros is not chayiv in sukkah, basar, dagim, gevina is not chayiv. Only the Shulchan Aruch is going to be machmir for chamesh zaminim. So now he says, just skip around a little bit.
Great.
But the Mishnah Berurah continues. The Kama Achronim mefakfikin b'din zev item the Rishon say yayin. He talks about yayin b'kvius. Maybe you should make a bracha if you sit around to drink wine.
In this.
Yeah, that's about wine. And then about mizonos, so Lini Pasabal B'Kisnin, we're going to talk about it. He doesn't bring it over here. He says it soon. And then he says, Roy V'Nochon, he says he's being machmer by wine. Okay, then about Perus. So far I wasn't machmer.
People who drink a lot of wine, they want a nash at some point. Or they want some cookies.
Okay, mizonos is different, but now he continues. Then he says, so far the Shulchan Aruch alone with the Ramah, they said that a kibetz a pas you're allowed to have out of the sukkah means basically you're going to bench also, but it's still considered alright. And then wine and water, and Paris as much as you want. And the Mishnah Berurah says according to this, even meat and cheese and what else did he say? And fish. And if somebody's machmer, not even water, not to eat out of the sukkah, that's wonderful. That's even water. Okay, that's a chumrah. That's a chumrah. Reb Shlomo Zalman used to say that he was machmir. If you can go to the sukkah, you'd go to the sukkah. But if you can't go to the sukkah, that he shouldn't eat. He wasn't machmir for that. He wasn't machmir if he's in a place where he has no sukkah. He wasn't going to be machmir. He was machmir if he's able to get to the sukkah, so go into the sukkah. But if he's going to be machmir not to have the food, he wasn't machmir. That's what they say. Yeah, because it's part of the tam shalasim mechameshes minimum kabel choshev keba batzarach sukkah. If it's something made out of the 5 grains, mizonos, so then if he's koveya, then he doesn't need a sukkah. Mishnah Berurah talks about cake, and he I think that is a suffix over here, and he says better to eat in the sukkah without a bracha. Right. Oh, v'hiskimu kama achronim denachal mahachmir melachol basa v'dagim uvina chos l'sukkah v'davka b'kviyas avashlo b'kviyas ein lachmir klal. He says that there is all those that are machmir that tagima. We said in the Gemara there is a mashmos that tagima might be more chamor. So he does say that there's some machmir for meat, fish, and cheese not to eat out of the sukkah if it's b'kviyas, but not b'kviyas. You just want to take a piece of cheese, open the refrigerator, you take a slice of cheese. So he says you don't have to be machmir at all.
So the wine we're saying is better, yes, and including
To be koveya on wine is questionable. Better to eat in the sukkah without a bracha, without leisha b'sukkah.
Oh, they don't? Even if it's got drinking a nice
No, if you're going to be there for 15, 20 minutes, then you make the bracha even without the wine also. If you're going to be there, if you're not, but here we're talking about the food alone. Is it considered a kviyas? Okay, and they possible bekisna, they bring something people they have cake and coffee, so then it is considered a kviyas maybe.
We drink wine in the sukkah. Would you make our
Leisha b'sukkah. So he says not to say mekabel lini bracha. Ein levarach leisha b'sukkah kima pasas. Yeah, he said not to say bracha.
Coffee, anything like a cup of coffee, you usually don't stay for 2 minutes. Coffee, you sit down for 5 or 10 minutes. And beside the staying there, you should read the bracha.
Yeah, and the regular will say that if I'm going to be in the sukkah until I'm going to eat a meal, that they're still going to say bracha. You're used to the growth that they say bracha as soon as you come in. But the popular custom is if you can eat a meal in this sitting, so I'm going to wait to the bracha until you're going to have the.
It's the wrong thing.
The pasha says say bracha.
So Rebbe, I always make havdalah in the sukkah.
Yes.
Have geffen, and I always make a leisha b'sukkah. I shouldn't be making a leisha b'sukkah.
Because you're not drinking the kviyas, and then you go out right. If you're going to stay there after that, if you'll be sitting there for the rest of the Matzah Yantif,
I have to want to daf
So I think that you shouldn't say leisha b'sukkah.
Mika Yisrael that we're learning Dinei Yeshiva Sukkah in the 3 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, Yashikoch. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. Thank you, everybody. Yashikoch.
Okay.